and gentlemen, to another episode from the TheoTech podcast. My name is Alan.
And I'm Chris.
And we are going to try a different format this week. So this week, we are introducing the Blitz format. And what this is going to be is we're going to take a topic that we've sort of discussed about throughout this week, and we're going to just dive right in. And for 10 minutes, or about 10 minutes, we're going to discuss that topic, share ideas, our thoughts, and yeah, that's what we're going to do. What do you think, Chris?
Let's do it.
All right, cool. So obviously, there's three components to the whole TheoTech mindset, and that's technology, entrepreneurship for the gospel, right? So one of the big things about technology is social media. That's the big buzzword, right? And so my question for you, Chris, is
Yes.
Social media, is it a beauty or a bane?
Bane. Well, actually, I don't know. Why would it be beautiful? I don't consider social media beautiful most of the time. But
Okay, let me rephrase this question. Basically, your thoughts on social media, and then is it good, is it bad?
See,
Is it
okay, so I have thoughts about it for sure, but the challenge for me actually is that by nature I'm a little bit more of an introverted person, and so maybe most people are this way. Actually, my consumption of social media is probably asymmetrical. I end up browsing a lot of content when I'm bored to occupy my mind, and then I end up posting a lot of things, but not like incessantly. Like I'm always kind of actually thinking about if I should post something or not. And I sometimes wonder if that's even the right way to use the medium, because it feels like it's the kind of medium that's so high velocity, like things are just constantly being shared, posted, liked, tweeted, whatever else like that, it's difficult because I feel like having gone through school, I was trained to be more thoughtful about what I want to share, write, post, or something like that. Mm-hmm. And in social media, it feels like I'm working against the medium a little bit when I'm putting too much thought into it, because the content is so transient anyway. Like it'll show up in your feed and it'll just disappear. And then maybe I don't need to put in that much thought, but it feels a little bit wrong to me personally when I don't put in the thought into what I'm sharing or not. So it's this interesting thing where I grew up at, I think, that transition phase.
Yeah, we actually had the privilege of growing up in that transition where like we grew up without the technology and social media. So our words count a lot.
Yeah.
But then like I think like this generation that's growing up, like the people that are like 10 years younger than us,
yeah,
they're the ones that are like kind of using words not really frivolously, but I don't know what the word is, like
maybe very transient.
Trans.
So like, I think I mentioned this to you before. I recently, on a plane ride, finished reading this really old book from the 1970s called Orality and Literacy by an author named Walter Ong. Mm-hmm. And it was fascinating because he was studying basically the history of how it's really difficult to interpret an oral culture when you've grown up in a literate culture. Mm-hmm. Like when everything all the knowledge that you attain is through the assumption that there's written systems and that everybody knows how to read and everybody knows how to write. It's very easy actually to look down on oral culture for certain kinds of things like repetition in what they say and kind of aggregation instead of analytical thinking. It's more like just kind of combining ideas together. So several other concepts like that. And basically the thing that was fascinating to me was that I realized that a lot of the ways that social media and Twitter with 140 character tweets and SMS, text messaging, all those kinds of things, they've kind of brought us to a place where we're becoming more of an oral culture, but using a textual electronic medium. And sorry if I'm using too many big words, but basically it's like in the same way that when we speak, our words just kind of are spoken and then that's it. They're an event. They're very transient. Our texting, our tweeting, our Facebook status updates and stuff like that are similar to that. They're not like long form writing anymore, right? And so a lot of the sorry,
there's a fruit fly buzzing around.
There's this annoying fly buzzing around my head. So a lot of kind of the critique of social media that you might hear from people saying that it's making us dumber, we're not really thinking as much and those kinds of things, and not thinking as deeply or analytically, they're a little bit valid, but there's something that's really not new. Like history is in some ways cycling again away from a lot of analytical long form writing to short form, transitory writing that lets you have a lot of interaction and a lot of interactivity, but maybe less of the ability to really deeply think about a subject. And so actually having both abilities is really valuable because you get advantages to either approach an oral-based culture and a literate culture. Each has its advantages. Literate culture is very powerful, but oral culture oftentimes has more of the interactivity that sometimes I think that in our society people sometimes feel like they're more isolated or alienated. And so having more of that interaction is something that helps towards that end.
I see.
So
How
yeah,
so how often do you use social media like Facebook,
I use it
Twitter?
every day. I'm a
Nice.
daily active user.
Yeah. And you said that you consume more than you produce, right? So you'll scroll through your feed more often than you'll like post.
Yeah. But I noticed that if I'm really engaged in the activity I'm doing in my work, then I actually don't check it that much. It's usually in the downtime or boredom time. I don't even know what the word is.
Board time.
Bored time.
Board time.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll make that word up. Yeah, to answer this question on my end, I think social media is good, and I think it's depending on how you use it. Kind of like a lot of things in life, like money, technology, whatever. Um, I think originally the idea of social media was to connect people, right? Like people who either live far away, don't have time, like you can see how other people are doing, and then kind of get a sense for where people are in life. I think the part where social media, uh, quote unquote, gone wrong is when people kind of idolize it or they consume it as like a necessary diet for themselves. And I think it's turned into a point where they substitute, at least just from my perspective, I substitute real relationships for Facebook relationships or Twitter relationships. I don't know.
Yeah,
Do
I
you?
think it's interesting how Facebook has made it unnecessary for you to intentionally reach out to someone to find out what they're up to or how they're doing. That's kind of an interesting and new phenomenon, and I think that it gives you a lot of knowledge about a person, but not a relationship with that person.
I actually don't know if it gives you a lot of knowledge about the person because I think, just scrolling through a Facebook page or a Facebook profile, like you can get a lot of assumed
You
knowledge.
get a perception of the person for
Perception.
sure.
Yeah, there you go. That's
Yeah.
good. Good
And
word.
that's the truth. It's like Facebook and the internet in general enables people to project an image of themselves,
Yeah.
whether subconsciously or consciously. And it's I think that one of the ways that you see that the most extreme is really just people like buying Twitter followers and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Not
For
only
sure.
are they projecting an image based on the content that they post, but also they're projecting an image based on how many people follow them as a measure of their influence and power. And there's a kind of a cycle there where as you get more followers, more people think that you're important, so they think they should follow you,
Yeah.
etc. And so this is not new, right? People can do this in many other mediums, but it's something that's more accessible, I think, to a lot more people, and it can be a source of insecurity if you just feel like, hey man, I thought I had good content, but nobody follows me, I suck.
Yeah.
It could also be a source of pride, where it's like, I'm such an important person, I have 100,000 followers on Twitter. But in either case, that's more a deeper matter of the heart, which I think is really where you can discover how to use social media well and towards what end. We can go into that a little bit more, but
Yeah.
yeah.
All right. So in 2 minutes, I'm gonna ask you a serious question. How, if you could, how would you redeem social media? And I know this question obviously deserves more than 2 minutes, but
That's a really hard question, man, because
yeah.
social media is so broad too. It encompasses everything from just like you sharing status updates to like content marketing with a whole strategy and pipeline where people get hooked into your content and then they become your customer and all that kind of stuff because it's being used for so many different things. But I think that some of the values that I would love to see more of, this is for me personally, is ways that technology can do more than simply connect people, but actually help cultivate flourishing relationships between people. So I have some thoughts about that, but I won't go into detail. But kind of making that the objective. I know Facebook makes its aim to connect, all the world's people, and I think that if you could take that one level higher to say, can we use technology to actually cultivate amazing relationships with one another, that would be a noble endeavor. And then I think that it would be such a gift if people also weren't so overwhelmed. And that's really one of the challenges with social media is that the ability to produce content now and short form content like a link, a tweet, a picture, whatever is so huge that it is overwhelming. And so the way that companies like Twitter, Facebook will deal with this is they have their machine learning algorithms to try to surface the most relevant content to you, etc. But at the end of the day, you can still feel like you're missing out on stuff because they're hiding stuff from you and you're not even sure if they're hiding the good stuff or not. And it can just be a very overwhelming thing. versus when before maybe you have like 200 maximum relationships that you actually really know from people that you really know who are you're talking to, but now you just have this endless bombardment of things being shared by so many people. And I'm not sure that that's a bad thing necessarily, but I do know that for me personally, um, I love it when, yeah, I just love it when I can have a really deep connection with people, and I would take that any day over just like an endless feed of mildly entertaining things on my
Yeah.
Facebook feed, and that's really what I would love to see happen. And maybe that's not called social media anymore. Maybe that's a different kind of genre of technology, but that's where I think that there's a lot of joy and a lot of innovation actually to be had.
Social media plus, right?
Yeah, social media 3.0. I don't
3.0,
know.
yeah. No, I totally agree. And it's weird because I think everybody understands that difference too. At least most of the people I know would
Intuitively, they
understand.
do.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like understand difference between a real relationship and even that the term Facebook friend is now coined, right?
Yeah.
To describe a friend that you kind of know but not really.